Okay, and so in this lab exercise, hyperlinks on the same page, we're gonna jump between sections on our web page, right? So you could imagine that we're using a web page that requires us to scroll a very long time. Maybe we want to include a button that allows the user to shoot all the way back up to the top of the page without them actually having to scroll. Okay, so with the click of a button, our user could jump all the way back to the top of the page, right? And we want to create something like that. And so on the VLE, I provided you with some starter code that creates a long HTML document. So you don't have to do that part. You come to the VLE, copy the entire code, and work from there. Okay, so you're going to identify at least 3 locations that the user might want to jump to and create links to allow the user to jump to these locations. Suggestions include top of the page, bottom of the page, and somewhere in between, right? And so if we take a look at what the starter code currently entails, there is 5 sections on our web page, right? We have game development, web development, self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. Now, what we want to do is I want you to create 4 links, right? We're going to create 4 links, 2 at the bottom and 2 at the top. The 2 at the top is going to have a link that takes you to the bottom of the page and one that takes you to the middle. So you're going to target this self-driving cars H2 element. Then at the bottom of our page, we're going to create 2 other links that take us to the top and another one that also takes us to the middle of our page. Okay? And so, you see, with the starter code, we already have 1 link. And this link works, right? So we click this link, bottom of the page, it carries us all the way to the bottom of our page, or rather it carries us to the cybersecurity section, right? That just happens to be at the bottom. And we're going to take a look at some HTML concepts called IDs, right? So you can imagine that everybody inside of this class has an ID, a BTVI ID, right? It's unique. That ID only pertains to you. Now, if you didn't know, this class also has a class ID that identifies a group, okay? And in HTML, we have something called IDs and classes. So you can think of IDs as being a unique identifier, and you can think of a class as being a group of identifiers. Okay, so everyone in the class has a unique student ID, but also the whole class, okay, a collection of students has one class ID, one class name, okay? And so at the top of our page, we have a link called bottom of the page, right? And we set an href attribute of hashtag cybersecurity. Now, whichever HTML element that we give an ID of cybersecurity to, that is where that href or this link is going to target. So we come all the way down and we see our last H2. It has an ID of cybersecurity. Okay, no hashtags, just a simple ID. So our HTML page knows that the cybersecurity has a unique identifier called cybersecurity. We can create links on our HTML page to, instead of jumping outside of our web browser, we can create links on our page that targets a specific HTML element. Okay, and so again, I want to create a second link at the top of my page. So underneath my first link, I'm going to create an anchor tag, okay, and I'm going to call this middle of the page, okay. Also want to set an href attribute. Not going to put anything in there just yet. Now, this middle of the page link, it doesn't work, right, because I don't have anything inside of my href quotation. The second thing, or the next thing that I want to do, I want to look for which section is at the middle of my page. Okay, that's self-driving cars. So I'm going to look for that H2 element of self-driving cars and I'm going to give this an ID. So I'm going to say ID equals self-drive. Okay, I'm going to name that self-drive. Now, if I wanted that middle of the page link to target this h2 element, which is at the middle of my page, I'm going to go inside of my href attribute in my anchor tag, and I'm going to say hashtag and whatever name that I give, whatever ID that I give. Okay, so I'm going to say hashtag self-drive. Okay, so now if I click this middle of the page link, it's going to jump to that ID of self-drive. Okay, so now at the bottom of our page, we want to also create two links. One that takes us back to the top, and another one that also takes us to the middle. So we're going to come all the way at the end of our HTML document, right? And we're going to create two links, okay, using the anchor tag. I'm going to call this one top of the page. And I'm going to create an href attribute. And where do I want to target? Well, I have to give my game development an ID, because without an ID, so if I just set this to game-dev, okay, and I hit that top of the page link, it isn't going to take me anywhere because this ID doesn't exist on my web page. So I have to give an element that ID. I want to give it to my top h2 element, so I'm going to say ID equal to game-dev. Okay, so now that my link where my HTML element now knows that this game dev now exists. Okay, so I can hit that, and that's going to take me to my game development section, or my game development h2 element, which just happens to be at the top of my web page. Now, all I need now is a second link, a second middle of the page link. You can create it from scratch if you want to, but literally all you have to do is copy this middle of the page link, because it's going to carry to the same place, and you can paste it at the end. Okay, and so if I hit that, that also takes me to the middle. Okay, if I hit that, it also takes me to the middle. Top of the page takes me at the top. Bottom of the page also takes me to the bottom. Okay, and so the whole purpose of this lab exercise is to show you how to target different sections on your web page, and also how to use something that we call IDs inside of HTML. Okay, and so that is lab exercise hyperlinks on the same page.